Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name's Greg. Today I'm going to show you how I made this black garlic and truffle elk salami. Let's check it out. For this elk salami, I will be using 70% elk and 30% pork back fat. And I'm just going to start by cutting this into pieces that will fit into my grinder. I'll actually cut them a little smaller than they need to be just so they can cool down faster in the freezer, firm up for the grinder. There's my back fat. These just need to be small enough for the grinder, but I'm going to go just a little smaller even, like I said, so they can firm up in the freezer a little faster. Man, I love elk. It's probably one of my favorite proteins. I mean, besides seafood. I'm a diehard seafood fan, but can't afford to eat it very often. I'm going to take my 70% elk, 30% pork back fat into the freezer to chill out. When I make salamis, I like to mix up some mold 600. I like to do it about 8 to 12 hours before I will be finishing up on the salamis. This mold needs to wake up before I want to use it. I'll be putting about a 1/4 teaspoon and mixing that with about a 1/4 cup of water. And that'll just get that woken up. And I like to use this on salamis because it creates a protective layer of white mold called Penicillium nalgiavensis, which will work to fight off the other more suspicious molds. For my truffle black garlic salami, I'll be using T-SPX starter culture. These are the bacteria in here. And I don't know if you can read, it's a little bit starting to wear away a little, but what it says is it's for slow and minimal acidification. And this one will take quite a bit longer than like FLC or the Flavor of Italy, which are really the other ones I've been using lately. So I'm going to use about a 1/4 teaspoon of my culture. And I got, I don't know, just shy of a 1/4 cup. Might even just use part of that because I really don't want to add that much extra moisture to my salami, and there will be a small amount of red wine going into it too. That should be enough to wake this up. I'll give it 15 minutes, maybe a half hour, to have time to wake up a little bit. I like to have 15 minutes or a half hour to wake up. I'm going to keep the spices pretty simple for my elk salami, but I'm going to start with the cure, which is going to be an Instacure number 2, because this salami is going to take probably 6 to 8 weeks. For my salt, I'm going to use black truffle salt. And this is just sea salt, black truffles. You can see in there those little specks. It has little specks of it. You can definitely smell the truffle. And this is where I'm going to get my truffle flavor from. Next, I'm going to add some dextrose to feed the bacterial starter culture. And we need the bacteria to create the lactic acid that's going to lower the pH, making this salami safe. Or it's at least one of the safety hurdles. We'll keep it at a low pH where the pathogens, it's just not hospitable. They won't be able to run rampant. I'm also going to add just a tiny bit of plain sugar. Dextrose is a simple sugar, a monosaccharide, and this is more of a complex sugar. So far we've added cure, I've added salt, I've added food for my bacteria. I'm just going to add a little bit of white pepper, and that's going to be it. Keeping it pretty simple. And of course the black garlic. It is black garlic truffle salami, so obviously it needs some black garlic. It's going to be it for the salt, cure, spices. Pretty simple today. Here's the black garlic. If you're not familiar with black garlic, it's basically a fermented garlic. I did not make this, but I hear it's very easy to make. I just don't have a rice cooker, although I think I'm going to get one just so that I can make this, because this stuff is so delicious. I had this in the freezer. I'm just going to cut it real small and put it back in the freezer. But I want it to be able to be distributed throughout the salami. It's pretty soft. It's almost jello-like, like a firm jello. Black garlic is actually very, very sweet. It's not very garlicky at all. It's I want to say it's similar to a roasted garlic. Roasted garlic, tends to get kind of sweet, but it's very different too. It's sweet with a lot of umami, I would say. Definitely want this to be frozen when I mix it. If it's not frozen when I mix it, I could definitely sense some bad things happening, like it just kind of mushing into the salami, which is not what I'm going for. So into the freezer. That's it for the flavors of this salami. Got my back fat here and my elk, and it's all been chilled. You can see it's 29 degrees. Doesn't have to be quite that cold, but you want to make sure that it's somewhat solid, you know. So I have my biggest plate on. This is a 10 millimeter. And I'm going to split my fat into 2 different piles. Shut it off because I don't want to warm up that fat any. Half my fat ground wide on the big die. Okay, I'm going to take the other half of my fat, grind it through this 4 millimeter plate, as well as 1 small piece of meat. See if I can push the rest of the fat through. All right, don't want to heat it up too much. Now I'm going to change the plate 1 more time. I ran some of the elk through because it's harder to change these plates when they're glued up with fat. So sometimes if you can get a little meat in there, it becomes a little easier. And finally, I'm going to use my 7 millimeter die. The reason I'm doing all these different plates for different grinds is I'm trying to achieve a texture. Don't know if you've noticed, but I have not used my plunger once. Just letting this grinder take the meat at the speed that it wants to. I'll get the best grind that way. Take a small handful of meat, run it back through. That just helps clean out the last little bits that's left there. Got my liners on because this stuff's really, really cold. So I'm gonna take my coarsely ground fat, try to spread it around on top of this meat kind of evenly. I'm gonna take my finely ground fat and spread it out on top too. And hopefully this will give me kind of an even start to it all. I'm gonna add my salt and spices, sugar for the bacteria. If you recall, there's actually nothing in here but white pepper. Salt, pure salt, white pepper, dextrose, and sugar. So the only real flavor in there is the white pepper. But the salt is the truffle salt. That's the flavor. Truffle salt and this black garlic. Keeping this one simple, but I think it'll be packed with umami. Gonna add my starter culture. This is the T-SPX, so it's kind of a mild one. It should take a good day or 2 to ferment. And just a small amount of red wine. This is one of my favorite glasses. It's pretty funny. So it's 0.07 ounces for rabbits, 1 ounce for ladies, 2 ounces for gentlemen, 3 ounces for pigs, and 4 ounces for jackasses. I love that cup. Anyway, just gotta mix this up. So the reason I went for those different size grinds on the fat is I'm hoping to have little speckles of fat all throughout the salami. And then every now and then I want to get a big one of those pieces of big fat that just melts. Because the thing I found about using truffle salt in these types of things is that flavor really goes to the fat. And so when you get those big pieces of fat, it's just like truffle melting over your tongue. It's just a really pleasant sensation. Fine salamis are a little drier. You don't add the extra water, the extra moisture. They sometimes takes just a little longer to come together by hand. You should eventually get a very similar looking farce with the strands reaching out, stick to my hand. It should do all that stuff, but we're not there yet. Smelling pretty good, like truffles. It is starting to lift the bowl up a little. Can definitely feel it putting some pressure on my gloves. It's definitely sticking. But I'm also getting a couple pieces that just aren't really incorporated yet, so just gonna go another few seconds. All right, it's lifting everything up, sticking super good. Can't even flick it off. Got a little bit of the strand action going, and yeah, gonna put this in the casing. Because I wasn't paying attention when I ordered these. Usually get them pre-tied, but I did not get them pre-tied. So what I got to do, I fold a bunch of pleats into it, and then while I'm holding those tight, it's a little bit tricky, but you can make it work. Tie a knot, tie another knot to keep that tight. Now what I'm going to do is I fold this over, and I'm going to tie another knot right here where it's folded over, and a second knot to keep that first one tight. And this is going to create a kind of knot. Now if I want to tie this here to hang from, when it's hanging, all the pressure will be on this bubble, this little nub, rather than sliding right off. So that's a good knot to know. I'm going to do my other one real quick. Bring you back when I'm ready to stuff these. The 61 millimeter casing. They don't really get stuck on the horn quite as much as the natural casings tend to, but I still like to lube it up. All right. Sterilized my sausage pricker. It is a salami, so I like to do the extra little things. Punch some holes in. And I'll tell you the truth, it would have been good for me to push the meat to the end before loading my casing, but I did not do that. But those holes will let the air out, so it's all good. Now with these, I want to stuff really pretty tight. So I'm holding pretty firm grasp onto the horn. Really don't want to let air go back up it. It is possible to burst these, but they are actually pretty rugged. Second video I ever made, first real content, I burst one of these on my Finocchio one. So I think that's about good for the size I want to make. I want to make 2 smaller-ish ones. Had just a little too much to fit into one casing. The second one I think will be a little bigger than that first one. Kind of what I'm going for. Got this tool. Works pretty good to empty out this horn. Does a pretty good job of it. So next, just going to twist that up really good. Once I think I have it twisted really good, I'm going to twist it a little more. Once I really can't twist it anymore, I'm going to put a string on it. This is the tricky part. While I'm still holding this tail from the casing so that it doesn't unravel. I'm going to push that knot down, hold on to one of these strings, and just cinch that as tight as I can. Now I'm going to do that again. Second knot to hold the first. And I'm going to fold this over just like I did on the other side. Make a knot. Second one to hold that tight. And that should be good. Sometimes I go to the back side just to get a little extra insurance. Can't really hurt. And now I have a nice bubble. And that's where it'll take the friction when I hang it. But now I can cut off my excess. Do the same to this one. I'm going to twist the hell out of it. Once I think it's tight enough, I'm going to twist it some more. Put my string on it while I'm still holding it. Go and pull my knot. Tie a second one. Fold that flap over. Make a knot on this side. Simple overhand knot. Tie a second one to hold the first one tight. There's my knot, probably good enough. I'm going to make a little knot on the back side just for insurance. If you're unsure about your knot, just tie a lot. Bam. I can cut off my extra here. Could cut off the extra string, but one of them I'm going to tie into a knot for hanging. Knot to hang it from. Actually leave one of these tails just so I got a place to put my tag on. Now importantly, I do have some air pockets, especially where I pushed that last little bit through. I want to make sure I get those out, but I actually want to just go all up and down this and put holes in. I do want to put more holes in this than I would for a sausage. I want to make holes for any air to escape, and this will also help a little with the drying. I'm going to take the little piece that's left in my hopper, just going to wrap it up nice and tight, and I'll check my pH with that. Almost done with the work, but first I need to weigh these and write that down. And that with a little bit of math will tell me when these are ready. Okay, so this one's a little longer. I can remember that the longer one weighs a little more because I'll make my tag after they're done fermenting. Find that if I put my tag on before I ferment, they tend to get all smeared and blurry and kind of greasy and weird. So the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to brush some of this mold 600 on. I think it's the most efficient way to apply this. You could dip it if you had enough, you had a bunch, you can make a bigger batch of the mold and just dip them all, or you could put it in a spray bottle and spray them, which I sometimes do with my cabinet. Okay, looking pretty nice to me. I'm just going to cover these. And this should create an environment on this tray that's, you know, a good 95% humidity, because all that humidity from in the salami. And And this is just going to stay on the counter because it doesn't need to be that warm. In fact, my house is probably warmer than this needs to be. It says 65 degrees. It's probably going to be between 68 and 72 in my house right now. Expect with the STPX, it'll be a milder acidification. It'll take a little longer. Within a day or two, well, these should be down there. Maybe 3. We'll see. But that's the hard part. Now it just has to ferment, and then I'll put it in my cabinet. See you in a bit. I'm ready to check my pH. All right, we're at about 4.9, a little below 4.9. I was wanting to get to 4.9 or 5, right in that range, so I think we're good to go. This took 60 hours sitting on my counter to get here. STPX is a much slower starter culture, and I've been fermenting it's only about 65 degrees in here, maybe 68. It smells pretty good. I'm definitely catching some of that truffle and the black garlic. But check this out. This is really cool. Look how much white mold is already starting to grow in just the first 60 hours. And it's not growing where this plastic was touching it, but it's growing everywhere else. And I have a feeling once I put this in my cabinet, it's going to have white mold everywhere. Into my cabinet at 55 degrees and about 80% humidity. Well, time to get these salamis out of here. They actually only took about 5 weeks. Thought they would take a little bit longer. Let's go see what they're all about. Well, I'm pretty excited to see what this is all about in here. Let's give it a little slice. All right, I was a little worried about that because it dried so quick. I do have a bit of a dry ring, quite a bit of a dry ring. Let's get a slice. So it does have a bit of a dry ring around the edge. Seems like it's okay in the middle. You can see it did get little specks of fat and then my big chunks. That was what I was going for with the grinding at different sizes. Smells okay. Doesn't smell rotten or anything. Definitely really dark here though. That's the black garlic. The black thing. Black garlic is really sweet. Comes through in here. Getting the truffle. It is a little chewier than most of my salamis, and I think that's because of that drier ring around that edge. I'm really confused about it. My hygrometer sets up to my phone, and I can see that the average is 79.9. The average humidity is good. My average temperature is good. That's what it's doing now, but I look at the past week, and you know, it's been around 79.9. And for the month, it says the average has been 79.5. It's a little hard to see because it's behind that blue. 79.5% humidity. Yeah, I'm going for 80%. I mean, but it's pretty close. Really not sure why I got such a drier ring around the outside than what I usually get. The humidity seems good. Temperature's been good. Not really sure what's going on. I mean, the inside, like I said, it smells fine, tastes fine, but it's a little chewy because of that dry edge. I mean, it did dry pretty quick. I was surprised that this took just about 5 weeks. Usually a salami this size takes 6 to 8 weeks. Beef salumi dries a lot quicker than a pork salumi. So I guess it makes sense that a red meat and elk salami would dry quicker. It's much more lean. I'm confused by this. What I'm going to do is take this casing off. I'm going to put it in a vacuum sealed bag, and I'm going to let it equalize for a month, and hopefully it will be a little less chewy. You know, that edge will moisten, and the center will maybe dry, and it will become more equal, hence the name equalize. This casing is being really stubborn. So what I have here is some warm water. It's not hot. I'm not trying to melt fat, but it's not cold. And I'm just going to leave it in here. Turn it every few minutes. Give it like 2, 3, maybe 5 minutes. That's going to soften my casing, and that should help this casing come off. I'm not sure why it's being so stubborn. I did dry this to a little over 40%. It's like 41.5%. So that could be it. I've got a very good protein extraction, and it's a protein lined casing. Obviously very good casing adherence there. So yeah, I'll just give it a couple minutes here and just keep turning it every now and again. So that all sides of this casing soften up. Yeah, I've had it in there a few minutes. It's definitely coming off quite a bit easier now. Probably could have left it even longer because some of it is still a little sticky. Wonder if this is related to that dry ring. Never needed to use this water trick to get the casing off. Of course, I do usually stop them closer to 40%, but could that 1% really make that much difference? You know, this doesn't usually happen, and I don't usually get a dry ring. I think they must be somehow related. Gonna have to do a little bit of research. If you have any ideas, please put them in the comment. I'd like to know. Looks like I got it all off. Let's spray a little of this in my chamber because that mold was really healthy. Now I'm just gonna dry that off on a paper towel here. Yep, that's looking pretty good. I think I'll cut this in half so I can fit it in a Ziploc, in a vacuum seal bag, a smaller one. It's a little scary, that black. It's like, oh, did I get black mold? But no, it's black garlic. And this one doesn't really seem to have as much of a dry ring as that other one. Interesting. A little bit on the one side, but really not quite as much as this one. Really not sure what that's all about. It's always scary seeing black in the salami, but I know it is just black garlic. And yeah, you can really see here, the smaller grind is more freckled, speckled throughout. And I also got my big blobs. This truffle and the salami. Been kind of into it lately. I'm really not sure why that happened. If any of you make salami out there and you have any pointers or ideas, any clues as to what might be going on, like I said, my average temperature over the last month has been 55.1 degrees Fahrenheit, and my average humidity has been 79.5% humidity. Not quite sure what's going on there. Anyway, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like this kind of content, subscribe to my channel. Whatever you do, make sure you're putting some love into your food. Peace.